Money Sense is brought to you with the support of OneTradeX. OneTradeX, the Cayman Islands' #1 choice for online brokerage.
Live from Radio Cayman Studio, this is
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community.
Good morning and welcome to Money Sense. I'm your host Neville Hicks alongside Christophe Barnett. Before we introduce our guest today, I just want to wish best of luck to the ladies and gentlemen who are writing the CFA exam on Saturday. This is a grueling test of acumen and really the highest level when it comes to finance and financial analysis. It consists of probably over 300 hours of prep for each level, and it comes down to 2 3-hour exams on Saturday. Both Christophe and I have been through this gauntlet, so we know you're almost there, and we certainly wish you the best of luck on Saturday, whether you're writing level 1, 2, or 3. So with that, I'd like to introduce our esteemed guest of today. Joining me is Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment, Honourable Wayne Penn. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Joining us alongside Minister Penn is Jude Scott, CEO of Cayman Finance. Thank you, Jude.
Thank you, Neville. Always a pleasure.
So today we've got a great show lined up. Obviously, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the ministry and what's going on there. There's been some recent topics and developments. Obviously, the financial services sector itself is a huge pillar of the Cayman economy, and getting a little bit more insight into that and analyzing how we continue to kind of be the leader in the offshore space. So maybe, Minister Penn, turning over to you, I guess if you could give the general audience a little bit of overview of how the structure is of the ministry.
Okay, well, thank you very much. The ministry has a number of, I think it's a typical sort of ministry to begin with in terms of having a chief officer who heads the overall ministry. That's Dr. Dax Bastillo. And then within the ministry, we have a number of departments. We have the Department for International Tax Corporation. We also have the Financial Services Department, which deals specifically with the broad perspective on the financial services industry. Of course, we have General Registry, which is the registrar of companies and partnerships, and otherwise also known as the Registrar General,
right?
Because of the wide remit, and of course that includes now the intellectual property stuff that we're developing. We can possibly talk about that a little bit later as Certainly. Well. The new Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office. Of course, we also have outside of that, we have the various statutory authorities that we have responsibility for. The biggest of that would be, of course, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, which is an independent authority in terms of operations, but there is still a reporting line, and as the minister, I have direct responsibility in relation to that authority. We have the Auditors Oversight Authority as well, which was an authority that was created specifically to ensure that auditors, and Jude can probably go into more detail on this than I can in terms of the origins of it, but it essentially relates to a European Union directive which requires that auditors be specifically assessed and licensed and inspected on an annual basis to basically get the seal of approval for doing audits for EU
Certainly
connected entities. So it's quite broad.
It's a lot. It seems like it's vast and expansive as far as what's going on with you guys in the ministry.
And it's an extremely, this is just, we're just talking specifically about financial services, and that's it's very, very broad, very, very active. Of course, we have lots of stuff going on, and I wish we had twice as many people as we do have in terms of bodies. But let me tell you, we have an extremely capable team, very dedicated. I'm extremely proud of them, and extremely proud of the work that they do. Certainly,
it seems like there's been a lot
provided a
accomplished.
tremendous amount of support to me.
Yeah. And it seems like there's obviously been a lot accomplished.
Absolutely.
Of
Absolutely.
late, touching on a little bit on the LLC. I know we spoke a bit about that 2 weeks ago, but that certainly seems like, again, moving forward with kind of more innovative solutions that hopefully will keep Cayman at the forefront.
Absolutely. I mean, our job is to protect, it's to develop, and it's to help to promote in conjunction with industry and working with the good folks at Cayman Finance. Our role is to help to develop the level of services that and the products that are available, create the right environment for the private sector industries involved to really flourish. And we've had an extremely busy legislative agenda for the full 3 years that I've been here, and the latest example of that would be the limited liability companies law, which we've just now done a commencement or approved a commencement order in respect of. So that will be coming online. I think it's the middle of the month.
Okay.
And we're working through just approvals on a couple of final regs and the pricing details in respect to that. We'll be doing some publication of information in relation to that very shortly.
And does the government itself define a metrics of success when it's implementing these new laws or new I guess if we look fast forward 5 years from now, is there a metric or measure of success of this initiative?
Well, I don't think we look at it from the point of view of setting an anticipated response or some kind of measurement 5 years down the road. What we do is we work very closely with industry in relation to the development of these things. So as that interaction and the dialogue develops in relation to that, there is a lot of a comfort, a lot of clarity on whether industry itself, in terms of our local industry, thinks it will be very useful, thinks it will be very helpful. But just as an example, with the LLC bill, when we were working on that and drafting that, what we did was we actually reached out to a number of onshore service providers. So we spoke to 7 different sort of what we would regard as key stakeholders on an issue like this, to get some feedback, to get some perspective on whether this is likely to be a very popular product, and what the important features are, what characteristics they need in order to best suit the needs of their clients and the types of deals and structures that these types of vehicles would be used for. So we got tremendous feedback in respect to that, and I think there's a lot of comfort that this sort of product with the service, with the features that we've built into it, is something that's very, very attractive, and will be very popular. So I'm confident that we will have a lot of take up of this. particular type of vehicle, and it's a hybrid between a partnership and a company, and it provides tremendous flexibility. So, I would imagine that based on all the feedback we've had, we're not going to miss the mark in relation to this. This is going to be a very popular product.
Very good to hear.
It certainly, it's as I said, it's not something that we look at and we say, 5 years from now we want to have 5,000 of these companies or something like that. That's not the typical sort of approach. We do it more in terms of dialogue and interaction with industry to ensure that it is a service. And it's in every component sector of our industry. There are certain needs. There are certain there's a certain wish list for types of products, and I think we need to meet those as far as possible. Obviously, we're driven by priorities in terms of what's most important and how difficult is it, how we can best utilize our resources. And I'm specifically referring, of course, to our drafting resources, but of course that we have industry time as well in terms of our ability to manage these things and interact with industry. So we have a priority list, and
how on that priority list, like how do you, I guess, broadly speaking, prioritize? It looks like there's a lot on your plate and the group of people who are working with you. How, we've spoke to Jude and we've had a number of industry heads in, and there's a lot of, we're a vast financial services, leader in the offshore space. How does the government prioritize what's important versus what, could maybe wait?
Yeah, I mean, I think our first lead is industry's perspective on it. But also, it depends on how complex the sort of product is, the level of dialogue and consultation that's necessary in relation to it, and the where we are in terms of drafting resources being available, because there is a certain ebb and flow. We're constantly having to move around in terms of our priority list. We're constantly having to make adjustments to make sure that we're having maximum utilization of the resources available. And so it starts from the position of what is industry, what are the big things that industry wants. We also have the Financial Services Legislative Committee, which has been a tremendous help in terms of being the eyes and ears and being involved in coming up with the drafting instructions and assisting in working out some of the complexity of some of the issues in relation to products. And they provide a tremendous guide and indicator as well of, from an industry perspective, of what's important and what the priorities are. But we do have to make some adjustments here and there to make sure that we're utilizing our resources as best as possible. Right. Because it's interesting looking back over the last year and a half or so. We have achieved a tremendous amount, but there are timelines that you set initially that you think, okay, we're going to be able to deliver these bills at this point, and inevitably, sometimes you have these things that actually get ahead of the schedule, but more often than not, you end up having other things that get interjected that would change your priorities, and you have to address those. So we do have some slippage sometimes in a lot of the agenda in terms of priorities, but I think we have made tremendous progress with that. I think we have delivered probably unlike any other government and ministry. And of course, one of the reasons for that is we have a very specific ministry built around financial services now for the first time, and I think that represents or reflects the importance that this government places on financial services. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's a huge pillar. The single biggest pillar of our economy, and it represents opportunities for several thousand Caymanians to have good careers and very rewarding opportunities. and it contributes so significantly to our government revenues.
Right.
Of course, you can add in any of the other ministries that don't actually generate revenue but provide essential services that that revenues from financial services actually pay for. You name it: education, Department of Children and Financial Family Services, all those types of things. Infrastructure. Those are the people that we work for to be able to provide those services to the country as well.
Just following up on that, and you spoke a little bit about it. Obviously, we've had tremendous growth over the last 30 years in financial services. What has defined that, or how do we continue that momentum when it comes to, I guess, from the government standpoint? What are the critical points going forward?
Well, I think having, as I said, having a dedicated ministry to it, I think brings fresh priority and fresh perspective. But we started off our success in this industry by interacting very, very well. I mean, it was of necessity to begin with industry, with key organizations and key players in the industry. And I think over time, along the way, we sort of got away from that a bit, and there was perhaps a perspective that you had to put a little bit of distance between industry and government, and this concept of arguments about the tail wagging the dog and all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah.
But listen, we know, and where we've gotten back to is making sure that what actually generated the initial success for us has now become not something of necessity, but an interaction by design, deliberately ensuring that we have clear consultation, we have clear interaction with industry, and we're driven by the needs of our industry. Of course, we have the regulatory element as well, and we have to ensure that we achieve and maintain high standards, because obviously Cayman has become known as a very high standard jurisdiction. It's a high quality, high standard jurisdiction, and it's something that we have to ensure that we maintain that reputation. Not just because we're proud of it, but because it's essential that we do that.
Need to, yeah.
It's essential that we maintain that for credibility purposes in today's world, where quality and appropriate regulation is viewed as necessary to protect the financial services, the financial industry globally. So
the push for the beneficial ownership registry has been one of the major issues affecting us, and sometimes it's hard for the public, and I include myself in that, to follow just from news article to news article. But we've had some updates recently and some successes, I would say. So perhaps you could give us an update over the last few weeks or 2 or 3 months in terms of whether it's the premier being able to present our case at the Anti-Corruption Summit, and then just even more recent correspondence with the Exchequer.
Yeah, I mean, thanks. It was certainly we've that is a specific issue that we have been engaged in for quite some time. I mean, this all started the day we took office. Essentially, I think within a week of that, right, Jude? I think there was a request from the UK at that time to attend what Prime Minister Cameron was calling his 3 T's, Trade, Tax and Transparency conference, and that was a conference that he had in London, which was just ahead of the his Lochern G8 presidency meeting, where he was outlining his agenda for the G8, and obviously he was very focused at that time on corruption. He remains focused on addressing that issue, and one of the ways, from his perspective, was to was to try to bring some clarity around who actually owns entities and structures, and hopefully that would then reduce the likelihood for abuse, and to be able to identify people who are potentially abusing this. We for some time after that, we engaged in various processes, including the public consultation, which we did certainly in conjunction with Cayman Finance as well, on the question of whether we have a public register, as was advocated by Prime Minister Cameron. And I think our industry basically said more than 82 or 85% of our respondents to that said, the system that Cayman has works very, very well. It complies with all the international standards. It meets even the G20 principles. So that is the corporate service provider system, where they go out and collect information. They verify that information as well, and maintain that and frequently update it as to who owns these entities. And we have this network of tax information exchange agreements, and we have the regular protocols around sharing of information through law enforcement, and that translated eventually into the exchange of notes that was done in April with the UK, where we agreed to enhance our level of collaboration, because as a country, as a jurisdiction, we understand that we must not only for our own domestic purposes, but internationally, we must play our part. We must take a zero tolerance approach to corruption. So we agreed on an enhanced level of collaboration with UK law enforcement, and that was then followed by the summit which Prime Minister Cameron had in London on as an anti-corruption summit. We had, prior to that, we've been asking to attend.
Right.
We'd indicated that we would very much like to attend, because clearly, the NGO's message was that places like the Cayman Islands, not just us, of course, but places like us, and because of our success, we have a big bullseye
Certainly.
painted on us, unfortunately. And so they were going to be criticizing us. They were going to be pointing fingers anyway. So it really required us to be there.
Was this the first one that the Premier had attended, or that I guess the contingency?
But this was the first global anti-corruption summit that had been organized. So we wanted to be there. We were asked. We were eventually invited. I think there was a lot of uncertainty around the whole thing. It developed quite quickly over a period of just a few short weeks. But we had the opportunity to be involved in an intervention, to contribute, and that resulted in our Premier being able to stand up there, represent the Cayman Islands, and represent our perspective that we are a very strong global contributor to the solution that people are concerned about around these issues. And we're not at all as the NGOs would have us portrayed. And of course, we had Mr. Scott and I doing interviews around the whole theme and the Cayman Islands position, and I think that turned out very well. I think that has resulted for us in a real, what I would call a sea change in some of the perspectives in the narrative that's been going on. The NGOs are not going to change overnight in terms of their position in relation to Cayman, but I think where there is agreement is that there are many other places around the world that really represent potential problem areas, and those are, and in terms of scale, those are significantly or vastly greater than any potential risk for a place like the Cayman Islands.
Certainly.
And indeed, even if you compare all of the overseas territories together, I always use this example now that there are more companies in one building in Delaware than all the companies in all of the overseas territories put together. And in Delaware, they don't ask for beneficial ownership information, whereas all the overseas territories do. So that's just an indication of the scale of the problem, and we shouldn't be represented as a risk. We should be represented as a part of the solution, and basically, the good people who are working hard to ensure that the financial system globally is not put at risk by this type of thing.
It almost seemed. I mean, we watched the clip from the summit. It almost seemed that the premier went more on the offense.
Very much.
When it came to speaking in front of the G20, which I think from our perspective
I
was
encourage
great.
everyone to look up the clip, because I think it was a good moment for Cayman, a great moment for Cayman.
Yeah. So
very much.
So do you think there's more, I guess, more offensive tactics that the government, private sector, even a regulator need to play in promoting Cayman as a jurisdiction that is offshore, but maybe to a much higher standard than some of the other areas that kind of get painted with the same brush?
Well, I mean, I think the collaboration between Cayman Finance and Jude, I'll let Jude speak to it as well, but we certainly from a ministry perspective, we decided we were not going to just accept the narrative that was going on, and that you see, in the past, many of our clients, for example, have said to us, keep your head down. Many of our advisors have said, keep your head down. Don't get involved with these things, because you just take more shots. But we were taking the shots anyway.
Absolutely.
So it was time for us to stand up and address these issues head on. And Jude did a great job with his interviews with some of the TV media. And I think we had some really good interviews with the print media, and a lot of this has now contributed to, I think, to a significant change in how these issues are broadly viewed, and what our role, how our role is viewed. Yeah. So I think we just wanted to make sure that people understood that our industry and the role that the Cayman Islands plays is important.
Certainly.
Not just to us here, not just to our people here, but in the global context, in terms of international trade, in terms of investment, in terms of infrastructure. Yep. All the things that they're concerned about internationally as well in the various countries, job creation and all that sort of stuff. So
great. Well, we keep fighting the good fight, and hopefully we can continue the momentum for Cayman and financial services. We're out of time, but wanted to thank you, Minister Penn, for joining us again, and Jude, you as well. Thank you for joining us here on Money Sense. And for the listeners out there, thank you for listening in, and we look forward to you joining us in 2 weeks' time. Have a great day.
OneTradeX knows there's more than one way to invest. OneTradeX is the Cayman Islands' only fully licensed online broker-dealer, offering discount trading services to individual investors and traders, hedge fund managers, and family offices. OneTradeX has the most competitive online trading prices of any offshore broker worldwide, with no custody or management fees, free demonstration accounts, and no charge to open an account with a $5,000 minimum deposit. Trade stocks, options, futures, bonds, and Forex. Learn more and open your free demo account today at OneTradeX.com. OneTradeX, the Cayman Islands' #1 choice for online brokerage.